There's a moment I think about often. I'm sitting at my kitchen table on a Tuesday afternoon, phone in hand, ready to call my daughter about something that happened that morning. A small thing, the kind of thing you'd share with a friend over coffee. And then I stop myself. Not because I didn't want to call her, but because I realized, when was the last time I called someone who wasn't my children first? When did they become the only people I reached for? That question changed my life. I'm Margaret Cole. I'm 78 years old. I live alone in the same town I've lived in for 40 years, and I want to tell you what happened when I stopped making my children the center of my daily life, and what I found waiting for me on the other side. I wasn't always like this. When my husband Frank died 5 years ago, I went through something I didn't have words for at the time. It wasn't just grief, it was a kind of dissolving. 43 years of being half of something, and suddenly I was a whole person alone. Except I didn't know how to be a whole person alone. My daughter Linda lives 40 minutes away. My son David is in another state. They were wonderful. They called every day. They came on weekends. They checked on me. And somewhere in that checking, I started to shrink toward them, like a plant that only gets light from one window. I didn't notice it happening. That's the thing nobody warns you about. You don't wake up one morning and decide to become dependent. It creeps. A call here. A decision made while talking to them. A plan cancelled because you were waiting to see what they thought first. By the second year after Frank died, I realized I hadn't made a single significant decision without consulting Linda first. The moment that woke me up was small, almost embarrassing to say out loud. I was at the hardware store. I needed a new ceiling fan for the bedroom. The young man helping me showed me 3 options. I stood there looking at them for a long time. And then I said, "I think I'll have to ask my daughter." He smiled, the way young people smile when they're being kind. I drove home without the fan. That night I sat in the chair where Frank used to read, and I thought, what has happened to me? I spent 32 years in a classroom, making decisions every day. I raised 2 children. I managed a household through lean years and hard years. I am a woman who once knew her own mind, and I was asking my daughter to choose my ceiling fan. That was the night I decided something had to change. I want to be honest with you. The change wasn't clean or easy. It felt strange at first, almost selfish. The first thing I did was simple. I made a rule. Before I called Linda, I had to ask myself, do I actually need her input, or am I just reaching for company? Most of the time, I didn't need her input. I needed connection. So I started filling that need differently. I called an old colleague I hadn't spoken to in 2 years. I went back to the book club at the library that I'd stopped attending because it was on Linda's day to visit. I started writing letters again, actual paper letters, to a woman I'd been friends with in my 30s who moved to England. The interesting thing was what happened with my children. When I stopped calling them for everything, our conversations changed. They became richer. Linda stopped asking, "Is everything okay?" at the start of every call. That worried parent tone she'd developed for me, which I hadn't noticed was patronizing until it disappeared. We talked about real things. She asked my opinion on her decisions. I was a person again, not a concern. And something else happened that I didn't expect. I stopped feeling sorry for myself. Not because I forced it, but because I was too busy. I had things happening in my own life that had nothing to do with my children. I had things to report, not just to receive. I'll tell you something else I did that first year, which is harder to talk about. Frank had handled our money, not because I couldn't, but because in our marriage it was simply how things were. And when he was gone, I discovered I didn't fully know what I owned, what I owed, or where anything was. My son David, who works in banking, immediately offered to take over, and I felt the pull to let him. It would have been so easy. I didn't let him. Not because I didn't trust David, but because I understood in that moment at the hardware store what it felt like to hand the wheel to someone else, even someone you love. And I knew I couldn't do that with my own money. I spent 6 months learning. I made mistakes. I called David for explanations, not for decisions. There's a difference. I'm going to talk more about this in another video. The specific things I did, and the things I wish I'd done sooner, to understand my own finances after 70, because I know I'm not the only one who woke up in her 70s with more gaps than she expected. But for now, what I want you to hear is this. Your money is part of your independence. When you don't understand it, you are at the mercy of people who love you, which is a very comfortable kind of helplessness. And comfort is not the same as freedom. I want to tell you what my life looks like now, not because it's perfect, it isn't. There are still evenings that are long and quiet in a way that's hard to describe to someone who hasn't lost a partner. But here is what's true. I have the ceiling fan I chose. I have friendships that are mine, not leftovers from being someone's wife or someone's mother. I have a savings account I understand, a will I updated myself, and opinions on things that have nothing to do with my children's lives. And I have my children, properly. Not as lifeguards standing at the edge of my pool, as people I love and choose to be with. If you're watching this, and something I said feels familiar, I'd like you to sit with one question before you close this video. When was the last time you did something, decided something, chose something, enjoyed something that had nothing to do with your children, your grandchildren, or anyone else's needs but your own? If you have to think too long, you have your answer. My name is Maggie Cole. I'll be here every week talking about the things we don't usually say out loud, about living well and living free after 70, not young again, just fully alive right now. Subscribe if this felt like something you needed to hear. Leave a comment below, I read every one, and share it with someone you know who might need it too. Your best years are not behind you. They are happening right now, whether you're ready or not.